Hi, I'm Jessica, and when I'm not drinking all the coffee, watching Razorback sports, or hanging out with my family of boys, it's my passion to help elementary music teachers just like you find your unique teaching style. My goal with this podcast is to share helpful tips, strategies, and to give you the motivation you need to gain momentum in your teaching so you can continue being the music teacher rock star you already are. Welcome back to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. I am so thrilled that you're here today listening. And today we're going to talk about starting the school year off with success. Now, this is kind of tricky because you're in the middle of summer or the end of summer or maybe the beginning of summer for you. And thinking about going back to school is the very last thing you even want to think about. So how can you get back into the swing of thinking about the upcoming school year while you're busy swimming or enjoying time with your family and friends or being a parent? Because let's be honest, during the school year, you don't get to spend as much time with your kids as you would like to. And so it's really important in the summer if you're a parent that you catch up with your kiddos. But anyways, there are ways that you can go back into the school year feeling successful. And we're going to talk about that in this episode. So the first thing I want to mention is make sure you do enjoy your summer break, because going back into the school year, you're going to want to go in with fresh and positive energy. And we talk a lot about self-care. And so one of the ways to go back with fresh and positive energy is taking time for you this summer to just rejuvenate and rest and get, mentally rested up as well as physically. And I know a lot of times that's easier said than done, but when we've discussed professional development before, I've talked a lot about how when you're planning out your PD for the summer, try to intermingle it with also taking time to relax and just have fun. And so, like for instance, if you had a week-long professional development, maybe it was Orff or Kodály levels. A lot of times, actually, those are 2 weeks long. But then maybe the week later is when you're just planning to just rest and go to the pool, go to the lake, go on vacation that week, or even just stay at home and just prop your feet up and read a book. Because I feel like it's a fine balance of taking professional development, but also taking time for you as well. And when I say taking time for you, that also includes, spending time with your family and friends as well, depending on how extroverted or introverted you are, right? How your tank is full, how your tank gets filled is what I meant. So let's talk about starting the school year off with success. The first way to prepare for the next school year is, like I said, is just to rest and relax. Well, also while you're doing that, we talked about professional development. So you're going to be learning a whole lot of new things this summer. At whatever training you're going to, whether it's a one-day workshop, a week-long, maybe it's, like I said, one of those 2-week-long trainings, which are amazing. But you are just like, you come back with all this material and just binders and binders of resources and songs to use, and it gets a little overwhelming going, well, what do I do now? What do I do with this? I already have all this other stuff I taught last year. So how do I, implement this new stuff with the stuff I've already taught? And it gets a little challenging and overwhelming. So my first suggestion with you preparing for next school year and the way to start your new school year off with success is always to reflect. And what I mean by this, that word can probably have a lot of different meanings, but what I mean by this for music teachers is take time to think about what went well last school year and what could have gone better. And I don't want to say bad, because I feel like everything is always up for improvement. Everything can always be improved upon. And so what can you reflect upon? Well, you can think about, the lessons you taught all the way to K to 5th grade. And I know some of you listening to this also teach through 6th grade. I know some of you listening to this teach all the way from K through 12th grade, depending on if you're at a small school or not. So think about, what lessons did you teach? Yes, to each grade level. I want you to look at your curriculum map that you followed. And maybe you're not really following one and you're just kind of pulling from a lot of different places, and that's okay. But look at all your materials you have taught with. Look at what lessons you taught from those materials and really reflect on what worked, what could have gone better, And if a song did not, or an activity did not go according to plan, maybe it's not time to just do away with it altogether, but is there a way you could re-teach that? Is there a way you could maybe reformat that lesson so it, reaches your students a little bit better? So really just reflect back on your teaching. And that's one of the first steps to reflecting this summer. The next thing to reflect upon is classroom management. And I know it's something nobody wants to talk about, right? And it's like one of those things that's constantly drilled about classroom management and your class time flows better, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? It's the truth. In classroom management, and there's so much involved in that one subject in itself. So with classroom management, don't just look at, did these rules in my classroom work? Did the procedures work? But also look at, is there a time in my lesson I can pause and just have a conversation with my students? Are there those students I have who I know, we're in third grade, but they're going to be in fourth grade now, where there may be those students that get a bad rap at your school by, they're the ones that are labeled, if you know what I mean, as behavior problems. I'm doing air quotes. And I love when I do that on a podcast. You can't see me. But are there students like that where you can maybe think of ways to form a relationship with them this school year? And you're going to notice things starting to turn around with those kiddos by you just pausing and reflecting on ways to just, 5 minutes here, 2 minutes there, whatever it is. Is there, with your colleagues at your school and the other teachers, is there a way you can get to know them better? Is there a way you can collaborate with them, maybe doing music with their students to teach math raps? I know you're so pressed for time, but maybe there's just different things you can do to help them out, as well as getting them to help you out with just communication. Maybe it's as simple as joining in the next Friday happy hour they go to so you can get to know the teachers a little better. So classroom management, let's get back to that. So yes, of course you want to look at what worked and what didn't work. So you're going to look at, did the classroom management I have set up, did it go okay? Is there something I need to fix? Is there something maybe I need to tweak a little bit? Is this working? Is it not working? How can I change things up if it didn't work? All those things you need to look at. And then as well as procedures. If you have some procedures for instruments, for instance, in your classroom, and your students are not following those procedures per se, maybe it's time to change things up a little bit. Or maybe it's you. I know it's very hard, and this has always been hard for me, to come across as firm to your students. But I think I've mentioned this before, and I'll say it again. One of the, you get pieces of advice from a lot of different teachers, but one thing that I really has stuck with me through the years is a teacher I used to teach with. She told me, come across firmer the first 2 weeks of school, and then you can start slowly letting up. And I didn't know what she meant. I was like, well, I don't want to be mean and I don't want to come across as firm, but it's so true. It's not like I'm telling you to start yelling at your students and being the wicked witch of the West. But what I'm telling you is, yes, these are my procedures and here's what's going to happen if you don't follow them. And so for instance, if you've been saying something with instruments, for example, like if you keep playing that when I'm talking, I'm going to take it away. And then you get distracted by little Johnny over here. And then Susie asks a question. And then this child is still playing the drum that you told them not to play. And you still don't take it away. Well, that's just going to keep happening. And so be the leader in your classroom and be firm. And maybe you need to think back to last year and say, was I always the leader? Was I always following through with what I said? And if not, you probably need to go, think of ways you can do that a little bit more this year. And so another part of starting the school year off with success is thinking about this summer, what are things that could go better with, your work and home life. And we're going to talk about that next week in next week's episode. And so, maybe it's as simple as getting your stuff all ready to go the night before. Maybe it's as simple as making sure your school bag is by the door if you brought it home that night. Maybe it's as simple as meal planning through the week. So those are all things to help you get started in, with success. So let's go back to looking at your lessons for this school year. When you're looking at your lessons that you taught this year, you're going to, like I said, be learning new things. So you can look at, when you're looking at the songs you taught, you can say, I'm going to completely take this one out. Or like I said earlier, you can restructure a lesson that didn't go well to maybe, if you did some movement activities to that particular song and it didn't go well, maybe change the movement activities up, or maybe scratch that all together and then maybe just clap some rhythms to that song instead. There's always something to tweak or change up that will help that lesson come across to your students better. But also, while you're looking at your lessons you taught, look at some of the new material you learned this summer and look at ways you can, maybe you won't be able to plug all of it into your scope and sequence for the school year, but maybe you can pick some of the favorite ideas you got. And your teaching style better than anyone. So you know what? This is really going to work with my students. Or at workshops something you learned that's not going to go over as well as you would hope. Because maybe your students, maybe you're like I was, and you're at a school that hasn't had music in forever. And so your 4th and 5th graders are not where a typical 4th and 5th grade music class would be. And so you're not going to be able to do some of this stuff with them, but you can do other activities that will really still teach music that will really keep their interest. So look at the stuff you learned at workshops, and you're going to have notebooks and notebooks of stuff. And so what I would suggest doing is instead of just being overwhelmed with all the materials you have, go through and maybe put some sticky notes or however you want to organize it and really highlight, okay, I'm really going to focus on teaching form. And so this would be an amazing activity or song to do with my students. And I've been looking for an activity just like this. So bam, you have something to teach that now. And so that's basically what I'm trying to say is go through the materials you have received and that you got in from workshops and things. And just you pick based on your students and your classroom and your teaching style, which ones you would like to implement. And then maybe that means you take something away that you've been teaching so you can put that new activity in. But don't overwhelm yourself with this. Don't get to the point where you're like, well, wait, she's telling me go through all the stuff I've already taught and then go through all the new stuff and try to intermingle it. And then it's too much material and I can't get through it all. That's when it becomes overwhelming, right? So that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe when you figure out some lessons that didn't go so well, and maybe you have tried to change them up, but they're still just not resonating with your students as much as you would like them to, then maybe it's time to take that song out altogether and add something new in. And it's not just about the songs and the lessons. It's also about your teaching style. And as you go through different workshops this summer and different trainings, whether it's Kodály or Orff or something else, you're going to learn different ways of teaching music. And so maybe, like I said, when you're reformatting a lesson or song, you're going to figure out new ways to teach those lessons that you've never even thought about before. And that's what's awesome about taking professional development is you are going to constantly be challenged as a music teacher in a good way to continue teaching your kiddos. And your teaching style will probably change over the years too, and that's okay. And I honestly feel like as you just get in there and do it, as you get in there and teach music, that is when you discover what your teaching style is like and how to teach your kiddos and what you enjoy doing and what worked with your particular group of students each year. And then at workshops, when you learn new things, it'll be easy to just plug certain stuff in that you've learned because you know what you've already been doing and your kind of flow in your particular classroom. So with that said, I want to invite you to the Start the School Year Off Right Challenge, which is starting July 22nd, which is this coming Monday, July 22nd. And if you're listening to this podcast episode after July 22nd, no worries. You can go to the link subscribepage.com/music teacher challenge. And even if you join the challenge after July 22nd, you can still join. You will still be sent the replays and all the challenge questions and everything, and still be invited into the free Facebook group. So I hope to see you there. I hope you're having an amazing summer and really think through some of the things we talked about today. We're going to dive a lot deeper into all of this inside of the challenge as we get going, and you'll be able to ask questions along the way as well. Have a great day, everybody, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, I would love for you to review the show and leave a rating on iTunes. To find out more about how I can help you gain momentum in your elementary music teaching career, head to thedomesticmusician.com, where you'll find free downloads, courses, the blog, and so much more. Continue teaching music and never doubt the impact you're making each and every day in the lives of your students.